Hey again, Live Like Your Nail Color Gals. We talk a lot about change on this podcast because the world, your world, is changing and it's changing fast. How open are you to change? Whether your instinct is to embrace change or to run from it, the fact of the matter is your life doesn't get better by chance. It gets better by change. So, what's a framework that's easy to remember to move through change so it can be more exciting and less overwhelming? Today's gal pal, Karen McCullough, has a framework forged out of years of change and then put to the test during the pandemic party when her livelihood literally changed overnight. Before we get started, have you taken my quiz to determine your nail color persona? I always ask my guests to share their results before we dive into our conversation because it's a fun way to get to know them. All you have to do is go to livelikeyournailcolor.com/quiz. You answer a few quick questions, and in your results, discover your specific nail color persona, your built-in strengths, and how to tap into those strengths when chip happens. Again, go to livelikeyournailcolor.com/quiz. Now let's get talking with Karen.
Tired of so much chip happening? Discouraged by so much downer news? Weary from chronic crisis? Don't let the chips keep you down. Welcome to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast, where the tips of your fingers and toes are ready to inspire you to not give up and to keep creating the business, career, and life you want. In each episode, we flip the chip and let our fun nail color with that crazy fun name cheer us on to remember our strengths, embrace the power of choice, see life as an adventure, and know resilience is only a touch-up or change-up away. Get ready for a good time and a good laugh with your host, Mary Foley.
Welcome back, Live Like Your Nail Color Gals. You know that when you try a new color or you give it a new name, you are leveraging the power of choice. You're also exercising your mental muscle of getting more comfortable with change, which is super handy when change or chip happens. Well, today's gal pal, she knows change and how to navigate it to make it work for you and for organizations. Karen McCullough is a nationally known keynote speaker and an expert on change, generational opportunities, and workforce trends. Now, I've seen her speak, and what I love is that she's relevant, she's meaningful, and fun, which is my kind of gal. She makes you think, she makes you laugh, and she sparks a realistic path to positive change. So, of course, I wanted her on the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast. Karen, welcome to the podcast.
Hi. Thanks, Mary. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. It's always fun every time we talk. And when I see you speak and how I see you, how it impacts others, having, done a lot of keynote speaking in the past, I know that's a gift as well as
thank
an art and a skill. So I'm really glad, particularly as a really powerful female keynote speaker, for you to be in front of groups like that. So yeah, we're doing the wink, wink. All right. So before we get into what you have learned about change, both, personally and navigating your own career and your business, as well as how you're able to impact others. I always ask my guests who come on the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast to take my quiz called What is Your Nail Color Persona? So what did you find out is your nail color persona, and did it nail you?
I laughed because I am the adventurer. And when I read it, I went, wow, that is so me. It's the person that's open to new possibilities, right? And I was laughing because that's me.
It is. I mean, it's the way I've experienced you. And one of the uniquenesses about the amazing adventurer persona is you really look at things that are new in a default positive way. Like that's why it's an adventure. It's like, oh, let's see what happens, or let's see what it comes, versus a place of more like, ooh, hope it goes okay. That's something that is a little bit more unique. Not everybody has that.
I jump in and then I say, give me a rope.
I jump in, give me a rope. All right. So now what about your fave go-to color? Right.
So my color, because I did my toes and I just did them, and it's a really, really strong pink.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not a pink on the top, but I'm a pink on the bottom kind of girl. Anyway, it says that I'm warm and chatty and I'm friendly. And who doesn't want that, So
well, do you think that nailed you? I mean, I think it did.
Well, chatty. That's what I do for a living.
That's true.
And I am friendly. I am very, I don't ever meet a stranger. So it is so weird that my nail polish nailed me.
It nailed you. See, you can take
It
all
nailed
these
me.
really, statistically validated assessments. Myers-Briggs is
The
one.
Myers-Briggs,
this,
right?
right?
Right.
Or you can just say, well, what is your nail color that you would prefer to wear? And I got it covered. I think it's hilarious. By the way, 39% of women just put color on their toenails.
Oh, well,
And that's the
good.
highest percentage. So you are in the highest percentage. And 35% do their fingers and their toes. Okay. So we like to call it that. I like to call it, so on your fingertips, you're naked or naked.
Yeah.
Right?
It
Okay.
said naked. I read that.
Right. Being your true authentic self. But on your toes, that's like a party in your shoes or party on your toes. Right. And the thing that, because you said strong pink, I'm thinking hot pink. I'm thinking a rich, saturated pink. So here's the truth about pink. Pink has a variety of very light pink, pale pink, all the way to the hot pink and the darker pink. So when you're in the strong pink, that means you're even more chatty. Okay.
All right.
That's going to work great for having a podcast.
So how long is this podcast?
Exactly. We may not have enough time. But let's dive in with your enthusiasm, talking about change. You talk about change is good. You go first, which is funny and true. I love that phrase. In your experience, let's be real. Why is change good, especially when it doesn't feel good during the last few years?
Well, first of all, I wrote that title 20 years ago. That's how long I've been speaking. And I never got rid of it because everybody thinks that's a funny title. And it's true. Change is good. We all say, oh, yeah, change is great until it hits us.
Yeah.
But today, I am an adventurer. And with that title, it says you love change. Mm-hmm. And so I did. I love change until it hit me and until the last few years. And for me, I've had to go through some tremendous changes, as most of us have.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to live through it and to be a speaker on change because, reality bites. And, I've had to really kind of drink my own Kool-Aid because I've had to really look at what I talk about and start to follow it.
So, and I know before you got into speaking, you were in retail, right?
I started a retail business before the computers. That's how I'll give you a hint. And I opened one in Houston. I'm from Ohio, where everybody was preppy and we were all kind of that pink and green. And I didn't see it here in Houston. So I opened a prep shop, like a shrine to Ralph Lauren. Mm-hmm. And God, it took off. Every year, one of my nieces would graduate from Ohio State and they'd move to Houston. We'd open another store. That's how easy it was.
Wow.
In retail, and especially in fashion, we changed every 3 months. Change was a part of my life.
Right.
When Generation X, I always have to blame my foibles on Generation X. When they came into the workplace, they didn't want to dress professionally. It was when the computer was coming in, right, and people were wearing their flip-flops and their shorts because they were behind the computer all the time. Casual dress really killed my retail business. And so gradually I closed each one of the stores. And I went to a national speakers meeting here in Houston. And I said, I want to do that. I saw people on the stage and I thought, you know what? I have experience. I actually have something to talk about. And my topic was on change. And I came up with the title, Change is Good. And I read a book. I don't know where I got it. Maybe it was in a book that said, if you read 10 books, you become an expert. So I've read thousands of books on change. And I embrace it and I enjoy speaking on it and I make it a lot of fun. But the big but's coming in now, March of 2020.
Yeah.
Pulled the plug on any sort of travel and keynote speaking. I'm a keynoter. I'm up on that stage. I feel the audience. I need the laughter. And that makes me and helps me be even better. When that was taken away from me, it was probably the biggest change that I've had to go through. I had no work and I had no idea how I was going to actually get through financially the next couple of years. So I decided that I would become a virtual speaker. And in the beginning, this was a change in how I was going to present. It was fun. It was fun buying the ring light and buying all of this stuff until it came and I had to open it and put it all together. I'm single. I live alone. And man, I started doubting myself, and my language was, I can't do this. And I heard myself getting in a downward spiral. And I knew that if I didn't shape up, I was probably going to be unemployed forever. So I started putting processes into my life and starting to do what I speak about and make the change.
And it was, I mean, I would think that because you were already changing up until that time, and it was good that you had processes in place. I mean, you had techniques, you had strategies, you were talking about them, and they worked. But now you had to dig deeper, or maybe it was harder. Did the same process
It wasn't
work?
the digging deeper. I felt like I just had to change. I had to change the way I do my work. And then think about people in the workplace. Think about when the computers came in. Think about some of the drastic things that happened through work. Well, I was in a place where the way I did my job was totally going to be different.
Yeah.
That was a struggle. So what I did was I started picturing myself successful. Picturing myself good. And I'm being honest with you, talking into my Logitech Brio, I had no idea if I was good. There was no response.
Right. It's not like you have a live audience where you can tell in a nanosecond if they get what you're saying, if they like it, if they're laughing, because a lot of what you do is to evoke an emotion. Yeah, you just don't get that.
We need to believe when people compliment us, we need to own it. So a lot of this became my self-awareness, where when you're on that stage, you hear it, you feel it, you see it. But here, I had to actually believe when someone said, you did a great job. I had to own it rather than going, no. Because if I didn't, because there was no other way to measure this. And so I began to realize that we have to believe when people compliment us, take it in. Own it, honor it, rather than because we need it, especially when we're going through change. I have to be honest with you, it was hard.
Yeah.
And I've been through a lot, and I know things are hard, but this was different because this was me having to do something that I wasn't comfortable doing.
Yeah.
And so then I think about, so now I relate it to people, because now I'm speaking again, young people going back to work who've never been in the workplace. Think about a 22-year-old that got their first job in 2020 or 2021 and has done all of their work virtually. And now they have to go back. Now they're going to the office for the first time. They must be petrified. There's so many unknowns. And so really, it's a time where we need to give them support.
Yeah. You were saying earlier, like, you blame or you thank the Gen X generation for all these changes, right? Okay, so I'm a Gen X.
Now it's Gen Z.
Yeah, I know, right? But I'm a Gen X senior citizen. So when you were saying about, you came in casual workplace, because I joined AOL when AOL was cool, and it was a very small group, and they didn't even use the word startup then. I mean, it was just, I was not doing something, it wasn't as similar to my peer group at that time, right? Like, so I'm starting in this group. Well, anyway, I remember at AOL from the very beginning, the first day of my professional career, we had email. Very few people had email then. They didn't even, what do you mean by email? In the company, there were people who were used to paper memos that would go into the slots of your mailbox, literal mailbox at work. And that's how a lot of messages got going back and forth. And I thought, email's great. Like, why do the paper thing? But my starting point was I didn't have to let go of paper in the workplace because I never had that paper memo in the first place. So when you're saying someone who walks, like, the pandemic happens, shut down, one day you have a whole book of business of keynote, speeches coming up, maybe even a good 12 months in advance. And the next day, even though they haven't mailed in, they're all gone. We don't know it right in that moment, but essentially within 24 hours, everything completely changed. When you said rug pulled out from under you, yeah, right. It's like saying, nope, sorry, you're going to have to, starting today, you're going to have to use email. Now, by the way, here's what a computer looks like. Here's what the software looks like. Here's where you type in someone's name. Here's when you do the compose.
You're right.
it's like, what? And the resistance to want to change is big because all these hurdles. And
the word resistance is good. There was a resistance. And I thought that it would be over by the summer. I think when summer of 2020 hit and we knew that this was going to be the longer than we thought, I think that's when everybody really, as far as speakers go, because I had friends that didn't even buy any equipment. I bought it right off the bat because I'm that person. I'm that, I'm that activist, right? I'm that adventurer. Let's buy all this stuff. It was exciting until you realize that this was going to be maybe how you communicated and made your living for the next, well, who knew?
Yeah.
I'm still doing virtual. I have a virtual coming up. I enjoy it now because I had to figure out my style. So as we go through change, there's other pieces to it, right? You don't have to change the way everyone else. You can make the changes and put your own style into it. It doesn't have to be done the way everyone else does it. For me, I stopped keynoting virtually. I don't stand up and talk. I have conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I will only do programs that are like workshop oriented or are discussion, because I can't just stand there for an hour and talk. I need some interaction. Mm-hmm. So I've created interactive programs and they like them. And you know what? I like them too. Now that I've learned how to kid around, I have to be me. And I wasn't me in the beginning. I was this robot. So the more you're not yourself, the more you're going to resist that change. But when I began to say, I'm going to be Karen, I'm going to be a little irreverent at times. I'm going to, have fun. I'm going to use my hands when I talk. It got more comfortable. I've learned so much about change. And I can assure you that my keynote on change right now isn't going to be the one that I've told for the last 20 years, because I think that everybody in my audiences is going through so many changes on their own.
That's why, even though it was evergreen prior to the pandemic,
yes,
now it's even more meaningful. And people want to know, well, how do you change? How do you embrace it? Which is why I wanted to have you on the show today. So you have 3 critical stages for moving through change and the change process. What are those?
Yeah, and I think they still hold true. The first one is called it's called relate, repeat, reframe, because I'm a speaker. 3 R's, right? Relate, repeat, reframe. So the relating is the self-awareness piece. And, right now I feel like self-awareness is critical to every person's success. We've got to understand how we relate, how we show up, and how others relate to us. So how do you show up in the change process? Well, if you had asked me this before the pandemic, I would be the person that said, I love change. Change is exciting. Change allows me to be different. But going through a change, a devastating, let's say, change, a real change, and there are so many out there, I'm not quite so flippant about it. I believe that you've got to begin to understand. So for me, the word fear, I'm going to be really honest with you, I was petrified. Fear of failure, fear of not being able to use the technology, fear that my Wi-Fi was going to shut down, or there was so much that I felt was out of my control. And the first piece is to identify your fear and to push through it. And the way I did it was through talking to people, sharing with my friends, sharing with my kids. I'm afraid. Mom, my kids would tell me, you can do this, Mom. You've done so many changes in your life and you need it. So for me, it was creating this group of people that have really helped me get through. So relate, the first piece of it is all about understanding you, understanding how you're feeling going through. I love Brene Brown, and she's from Houston, and we used to get our hair cut at the same place. She went on. She moved on.
That's hilarious.
Anyway,
I'm so glad your hair looks fabulous, by the way. Okay. Those who are listening by the audio podcast don't get to see your fabulous hairs, but you can go to your website, KarenMcCullough.com. I'll put it in the show notes and you'll see your fabulous haircut there. Okay.
Anyway, forget that. But Brene Brown's book, her new book, is about emotions. And the first thing she says is when we can define how we're feeling, we can begin to address it. And I did not do that. I would just say, I'm stressed. Pretty soon I started saying, I'm afraid, okay, or I'm bored, or whatever the word was. Once you can define it with this whole idea of self-awareness, it really helps you move through it. And so that's what I started doing. I stopped. I noticed that I use a lot of negative self-talk. Oh, I can't believe I did that. I'm so dumb. Oh, I can't believe I did that. That was so stupid. I did that all the time, especially with the technology. Oh, of course I should know that. Why don't I know that? And I had to stop, because when you say negative things about yourself, guess what you start to hear and believe? You believe them. So I really noticed that I did negative self-talk quite a bit, and that I've cut that out. And I think I'm much better at it now that I'm through the changes.
Okay, so you said relate is one.
Relate and then repeat. I want to get, because this one is important.
Yeah.
If your repeat is putting behaviors into your life to help you make the change. So for me, and this is going to be very different. If you're going on a diet, let's just say the changes are you clean out your refrigerator, you get rid of the carbs, you bring in the vegetables, you bring in the fruit, whatever it is. If you want to work out, you start a regime, you walk your dog 3 times a day, whatever. For me, I had to put behaviors in that would help me change. Practice. I had to practice. I had to practice by myself. We had to practice videoing me. I had to learn how to look into the camera. It was all of these things. And so I would practice every single day. And it's interesting. Because I do coach speakers, I coach people on how to give a presentation. The first time you do it, you're going to suck. Just admit it. Don't even, just go for it, But if you continually practice, you get better. And that's how change works. It's uncomfortable in the beginning, but the more we do it, the more behaviors we put into our life that allow us to experience and practice the change, the better it gets. And so I kind of followed my rule. I started to practice, and I started talking to myself and looking in the camera, and then stop and watching myself. It worked. It worked.
I love that. So that became, in some ways, your new job. Your temporary job was to practice.
Yes, it was my temporary job. And my son is my web designer, and he's also my coach. And so he would have me video myself, because nobody would come over, and then I'd send it to him, and then he'd say, do it again, do it again. So he was making video clips of me. So I'll put my YouTube channel. You can go and see some of those clips of me going through the pandemic. And I did one clip on change, and I told the audience how hard change was for me. It's gotten thousands of hits, and people wanted to hear it. They still need to hear it, because people look at people who seem successful or who seem happy, who seem to have it all, and they feel like, oh, you never worry about anything. So being honest about the changes really helped. And the last piece is reframe. And that's the easy one, because that's the motivational speaker in me. You've got to act as if. Reframe is if you want to go on a diet, lose 20 pounds, you got to act like you're thin. You have to say no to the Twizzlers when you go to the movies. You can't no to the butter popcorn. For me, I had to act like I was successful. I had to accept the gigs that were coming in instead of telling the person, oh, I'm nervous. I had to begin to live the truth that this was going to work and that I was going to be successful. That I was going to make the change.
So you started with a attitude of yes when you had an event planner or a meeting planner reach out, because you and I both know that in that time, event planners and meeting planners were scrambling to figure out how could they keep their event going to some extent. Right. And if I go virtually, how would there be a speaker or presenter who would be willing to even do something virtually?
It was true. And one of my friends is a bureau, and she said so many speakers said no.
Wow.
So I didn't know that. I didn't know you were allowed to say no.
Well, there you go. So, but this is an openness of yes. Okay, let me try it. Yes, let's see. But to me, it's almost like it gave you an opportunity to practice as well.
And so when I work with because I do a lot with Gen Z, and when I talk to them, it's about you get dressed up. You feel good about yourself. You put your best self out there. You believe in yourself, because you've got to be the first person that believes in you. So this acting as if you did it, acting as if you're thin, acting as if you're physically fit, whatever it is. I think it really pays. It's a mental game. It's all about the head.
So much. Well, you said earlier, you had to picture yourself successful.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I first started speaking, someone said, I pictured myself, I don't want to do this, but I would picture myself like Beyonce in a stadium with people laughing. I mean, that was my first vision when I decided to become a speaker. I didn't picture me doing a little workshop. I pictured me out there, big stage. Crazy. But that was my first thought.
Yeah.
So I think this nail color thing, I think there's truth to it.
Well, you were probably, even if you didn't picture it, in that moment, if you were in a big stadium and you were making people laugh and people engaged and going, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure you were going to be wearing hot pink nail color. So what I love is it's this relate, repeat, refrain. That's memorable. I can remember that. And I would think that even as I'm reframing, acting as if, I've got to still have some self-awareness.
Totally.
I've still got to mind that a bit more. You talked about reaching out to others as part of that process, talking to them, that helped you get more self-awareness. In that, it's this whole, the thing about asking for help comes to mind, because you got to engage with somebody to ask for help. And I know that asking for help can be a powerful part of the process of change. But with so much isolation that happened in particular during this pandemic and the withdrawal people have had, just from engaging with others even since then, I'm curious, are you seeing a trend from the last 2 years that it's either easier to ask for help or harder to ask for help? Because as women, we typically haven't been
harder
at asking for help.
It's harder to ask for help. It's easier to ask for help when you see people face to face, when you're having a relationship, when you're at work, but with all of the virtual, it's like I'm imposing on you. Can we have a Zoom call? So I think it's a lot harder. I know it's harder for me. I got my help from my friends here and family, because I didn't want to admit to my fellow speakers that I was struggling, because this is an ego business. So I'm sure people at work, unless you've really got a true friend, if you might be a little bit hesitant to start to talk about, your struggles. So I feel like when we see each other and when we are face to face and we build relationships and we share, intimacies, so to speak, I think it's a lot easier than to say, hey, can I talk to you for a second? Can we go grab, I'm struggling with something. But to do it, to have a Zoom call and to tell someone, I think that's setting up the appointment. I'm going to talk. I don't know.
And when we're all really honest with ourselves, that's the fear I think we all have, that if we look weak, or if we don't seem that we know how to handle something and do it well, that others that we care about what they think, others will go like, oh, that's it. She's washed up, or no. But there's also, Brene Brown talks about vulnerability, that being vulnerable draws people to us as well.
She does.
And it's this counterintuitive. I don't want to be going out, let's say on social media or in a wide audience, like, I'm feeling like crap today because, I think I'm a total failure. Well, no, I don't. But I have found incredibly valuable conversations and meaningful relationship, almost like the late relationships got even more meaningful when I was able to do that with a trusted friend.
Right.
So I think it does matter who and how you ask for help.
Yes.
It can harm you. You're when you ask for help in some level, asking help on how to do something on technology is not a very risky thing. But asking help of, I really am doubting whether or not I should even continue down this path. That is something I'm not going to just ask anyone. I'm not going to review.
So when I'm speaking, and if I was speaking on change, I would talk about asking for help, and I would talk about how it strengthens relationships, and the workplace, especially with young people, or especially with baby boomers asking for help. But I get it now. I made it seem so simple when I was talking about it, but it also, and I think Brene Brown is right. It does make you vulnerable. You have to be careful. So it could be a slippery slope, and it can also be truly highly beneficial. I think you just have to know the situation.
Yeah. Well,
Because I tell kids all the time, ask for help. It'll build the bond, especially when you're asking seasoned people in the workplace how to do things. They would love being mentored. So there's a huge difference between being a mentor and helping people, and then this place where I was, which was making a critical decision about your career. So yeah, but I believe that asking for help in the workplace, especially with this whole idea of mentoring and helping and guiding, I think it's really important.
well,
So
we think about asking for help in the whole process of dealing with change in a positive way, right? When we're dealing with a change and it's even something when we're dealing with a change and it's not comfortable. And in fact, it might even be scary. You used the word fear before. We don't have all the answers. We don't have all the insights to help us move along the path. And if we don't reach out to someone in some way,
yes,
we will stay stuck. And that's worse than asking for some help and taking the risk.
Yes, I like that, because now I do talk about it. And it's not to say that I'm not, maybe I do talk about it. So I think that there comes a time when we realize that the input is better than keeping it quiet, keeping it locked in a box. The discussion helps me process it. And it's made me want to speak. It's made me do virtual, it's brought me in and I want to do it, because there was a period where I was going to quit. So it's really, brought me back.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you reached out for some help and for some conversation, and that it sounds very much too, which sounds very realistic, that you did it piece by piece by piece. You let the change process, or dealing with change, whatever was right in front of you, that's what you dealt with. That's what you addressed.
I think that that's really good to figure that out, because I think when we do change piece by piece by piece, it's more lasting.
Mm-hmm.
I think it becomes a part of us. It becomes a part of our lifestyle. It becomes a part of who we are. When you do a drastic change all at once, it's probably hard to maintain it.
Oh, I think so. It's almost too much to absorb,
Yeah.
So that's why I like to say you can change your life one nail color at a time. You can just put on a new color and then say, that's what this color represents or means to me. That's what I'm going to focus on, because that's what I need now. And then you can focus on that. Then you could change your nail color again. And here's what's so funny. It's just simple, Karen, but I have done presentations. When I wrote my book called Live Like Your Nail Color, Even If You Have Naked Nails, there was a time that it came out over 12 years ago. And I did this whole keynote around it. And it was so fun. It was really fun to do. So at one point, I would often bring up about this thing that was true. So many women would say, I never changed my nail color. Like, never. They always had the hot pink. They always had a light cream color. I mean, they would be quick to tell me this. I always do a French manicure. And it was this always that really stuck with me, because those are all great varieties and good colors. I'm not, there's nothing against that. And I just would go, if you're not willing to change your nail color at all, the real question is, what else are you not willing to do that's far more important than a nail color? But if you are willing to change your nail color, think about what's possible. You can start to get more comfortable with change. You can experiment. You could go from, hey, I'm trying new colors, to the amazing adventurer that you are, which goes, what are the new colors coming out and which ones am I going to pick? Right. So that's why it's like a muscle, so it sounds like almost throwaway. Oh, you can change your nail color, you'll change your life one nail color at a time. But it's really about micro change movements that you proactively do. You know why you're doing it enough, and you're giving it some meaning, and then you're reinforcing that. And basically in 2 weeks, you got to take it off anyway and change it again. So that was embedded in just a small little thing. I will always have this color. And I was like, that's not a good sign, because shit's going to happen in your life, and you're going to be overwhelmed by the change.
I'm thinking about my friends right now, because one of the good things about the pandemic is I have a lot of friends now. I did, as a speaker, I was always busy. I could never, you couldn't count on me. But now I'm in 2 poker groups. I'm playing pickleball. I'm having fun. And I have a friend who she's had the French not the French. What do you call it when you just do the top? Is that the French manicure?
Yes, French manicure.
She's had it her whole life. She's never changed. I'm going to ask her. And one of the women in the group has a different color on every nail, or some days they're all black, some days it's all white, some days every nail is a different color. So it's an interesting group of friends.
That's right. So that gal is the amazing adventurer.
Yeah.
She likes to change it up and see what
she does it on her hand. I do it on my toes. She does it on her hand. So,
yeah. So with that, let's talk nail color again. If you could name a nail color to inspire us to embrace change, like we've talked about, what would that name be?
Okay, so I thought about this. So my nail color would be called Bright Future.
Ooh, all right. Tell us more about that. Why did you pick that name?
I don't know. I just thought that would be, because that's how I live. I'm always thinking about how good the future is going to be. Even though they're talking about a recession, I don't think about that. I just think about, the things that are coming, and I would like to have a bright future. So that's my color.
I love it. Well, this has just really been a lot of fun. And I wish you are chatty, but we could talk further because I can wear enough hot pink as well. I typically wear a lot of red. All right. But for those who want to reach out to you, they want to connect with you. Maybe it's on social media. Maybe it's your website. Who knows? Maybe they're like, maybe she would be great for our organization. What's the best way they can get in touch with you?
You can email me at Karen, my first name at KarenMcCullough.com. McCullough is McCullough. I'm sure you'll have that on the information.
Yep.
You can find that Karen McCullough everywhere. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook, or you can give me a call, 832-687-1051.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of this information in the show notes so people could scroll down, click, or have it there. And also, I would love to include the link to the YouTube video that you have posted about how hard change was for you. They got so much in it. Thank you so much, Karen. This has been great.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks for thinking of me. Bye, everybody.
And now for the after party I call Flip the Chip, where I take a few moments to highlight something my gal pal shared that can help us all flip a challenge or change that's holding you back into something more positive that can help you move forward. What I want to highlight today are Karen's 3 stages in the change process: relate, repeat, and reframe. So first, relate. This is about self-awareness, understanding how you show up and how others relate to you in the change process. Author and Professor Brené Brown said, when we can define how we're feeling, we can begin to address it. Well, so often our resistance to change involves some sort of fear. Karen said to identify your fear, to define it, and to push through it. Talking with those you trust is a big way you can do this. The second stage in the change process is repeat. This step is about putting behaviors in your life to help you make the change and to do these behaviors over and over again. If you do something repeatedly, you can get better at it. You can start to feel more comfortable, more capable, and more confident. And then the third part, reframe. Start to picture yourself as successful on the other side of the change. What do you feel like, look like, and what's happening? Then act as if you're already successful. Not because you are, but because before you get there, it's first in your mind before it's in reality. So, which one of these steps do you need to focus on right now to move through change? Do you need to more clearly define your feelings or the feelings behind the feelings? Do you need to be clear on the behaviors that you should be doing repeatedly to feel more comfortable, more capable, or more confident? Or do you need to start acting as if the change you want to make is already true? Whatever part of the change process could use more attention, there's one thing for sure you can add to it. You can use your nail color to cheer you on by simply putting on a new color and giving it a name like Bright Future that Karen suggested. So that every time you see your fingers or toes, you're reminded that change can be good and it can lead to a bright future. make good choices to create the career, business, and life you want. One step, one nail color at a time. Look forward to being with you next time on the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast. Ready to live and laugh more? Know a friend who could use some of that too? Then subscribe at liveLikeYourNailColor.com or your favorite podcast app and share this episode right now with the person who popped into your mind. Together, let's flip the chip to be stronger, smarter, and happier.